Well, good afternoon to you, Katrina and John. Newsmax hasn't verified this reporting from NBC News about a shift in the location where the cocaine was said to have been found. However, just reading the NBC News report, it seems like it's not a major shift in the sense that we're still talking about roughly the same area here. It's not a shift, for example, from the West Wing to the East Wing or from the West Wing to the residence or the mansion or what have you. But nonetheless, the indication from NBC News that the investigation is expected to be over by Monday does track with our reporting. And our sources are telling Newsmax that the U.S. Secret Service, which has the lead on this investigation, and the FBI, which is taking part in it, with all of the federal resources that they could possibly ask to have deployed available to them, are growing increasingly pessimistic that they will ever actually identify the culprit who brought this cocaine, this Schedule II drug, under the Controlled Substances Act, excuse me, into the White House. And when asked about why that might be, excuse me again, we were told that if it were simple as fingerprinting a bag and matching it to an ID, it would have happened by now. And that even with all the camera surveillance in the White House, something as small as a dime bag of cocaine could easily be concealed in someone's palm or what have you, to the point where the surveillance cameras, even here, wouldn't necessarily pick it up. Here's the sum total of what Karine Jean-Pierre, the White House press secretary, came to yesterday's press briefing prepared to say about this incident.
Where this was discovered is a heavily traveled area where many White House, West Wing, I should be even more specific, West Wing visitors come through this particular area. I just don't have anything more to share. It is under investigation by the Secret Service. As you all know, the president follows all the reporting here, and he certainly was briefed by his staff on everything that we know so far. The president thinks it's very important to get to the bottom of this. That's why Secret Service, which is under their purview, is looking into this, and they're going to look into what happened this weekend. So the president thinks it is incredibly important to get to the bottom of this.
Now, one other point that Karine Jean-Pierre wanted us all to know about this episode was that, as she put it, the president and first lady, and quote, and their family, unquote, were all out of town when all of this went down. Katrina and John.
Yeah, James Rosen, thank you. And John and I specifically noted that yesterday that she said, I have news for you. The first family was not there.
Yeah, very quick to point that out.
Yes, she was. All right. James Rosen, thank you. And joining us now to discuss is former Secret Service agent Melanie Burkholder and former FBI agent Jonathan Gilliam. Great to have you both with us here. Melanie, as a former Secret Service agent, the new location now where we're finding out that this cocaine was found, specifically the West Executive entrance. How different is that location versus where we first heard it was discovered? And also, is that a location where it is, I would assume, easier to get into the White House?
Well, first of all, Christina and John, thanks for having me on. It's great to be here. I think the location of the drug is almost irrelevant. I believe this administration is sadly somewhat desensitized to the idea that there can be cocaine in America's home and that it's not a big deal. They already are laying shade about where it was found and who has access to the entrances and what the implications are to those accesses. Well, if they have fingerprints, it's a very simple process, right? And they, I believe, already know the perpetrator in this crime. And I also think it looks a lot like a drug deal gone bad.
Very good point. Jonathan, how does this change maybe the investigation? The public clearly interested in this story, wants to know whose was it. Do you think we'll ever find out? And now that we know a different location, does it change anything in terms of the investigation?
Well, I don't know. This is also political. And Melanie can tell you, when you're an investigator and you're looking at these things, you follow certain steps in order to determine who, when, and how they got this substance into the White House. It's not like we're talking about a major event at the Super Bowl or some type of event like that where 70,000 people are coming in. We're talking about a small group of people that have had access at that period of time in a confined space that is probably the most guarded location in the United States. So if the Secret Service is not capable of finding out who carried any of that stuff into the White House. And we need to start asking real questions about who's running the Secret Service, what their investigative capabilities and protective capabilities actually are, because this is a complete failure as far as protecting not just the president, but as Melanie said, America's house. And I'll tell you, one thing that all people have to do is look at this from an investigative standpoint and ask the question, why can't the Secret Service tell us or find out what is in there? If this had been Trump in office, I can guarantee you half of Congress would be going crazy right now, and all of the networks would be going crazy. So it's not really the fact that they can't find it. It's that they are either politically not being allowed to, or somebody within the Secret Service that runs things is in political bed with the Bidens.
Yeah, Melanie, you pointed out.
Yeah.
Sorry, Melanie, you did point out that it's more of a problem, of course, that the cocaine was found in the White House. But you also said that the Secret Service probably already knows who it belonged to or how it got there, again, questioning the transparency or lack thereof of this administration. But even furthermore, it seems like Karine Jean-Pierre, of course, White House press secretary, even this NBC reporting with the update on the location, seems to be going out of their way to emphasize this is still a heavily trafficked area. At a certain point, it seems like they're trying to do some sort of a bait and switch.
Right, that's the shade I was talking about earlier. And it is true, to Jonathan's point, Secret Service should be looking at this with an investigator's eye and following the who, what, when, and where, and why. And that's just my whole thing. Who has the audacity to bring a Class 2 substance into the people's house, right, and plant it somewhere? I'm telling you, it looks like a drug drop that just went bad. And how many times has this happened before? I know that this is shocking, but Karine Jean-Pierre didn't come out and say, yes, the president wants to follow this to its fullest extent and prosecute the perpetrator. That, to me, would have been an indefiable statement that she could have made from the podium that would have put people at ease. We're talking about a drug, but what perhaps if it had been something more serious, something that's not detectable by magnetometers? That's the potential harm that we have, not only to the White House, but to the administration and the Secret Service agents that are there guarding it.
You make a very good point. What if it was something else? What if it was anthrax? Or if it was that easy to get into the White House? Jonathan, is there a breakdown in the security clearances there?
Well, that's an excellent point there, because let's say this was a small amount of anthrax. That's enough anthrax to kill several people in that area within that confined space. So the Secret Service is in essence telling us that if it was anthrax or any other type of volatile type of powdered substance, they're not going to be able to find out who brought it in. That's what they're telling us. And that is a scary, scary thought. As far as the subject of the press secretary, this girl has a tale like the worst poker player in the world. When she starts blinking her eyes quickly, she is either lying or she is trying to develop some type of a story to cover something up. And that's an honest investigative insight, because when I watch her and she's just talking about something in general, there's no blinking. It's as soon as she starts trying to tiptoe around something or lie, she starts blinking 90 miles an hour.
Yeah, and Jonathan, and Melanie, we have to go just in a second, but Jonathan, quickly, so do you think there is something being covered up, or maybe they're trying to cover up the person who they know brought it in? Just curious.
I think Melanie and I both know that. We both know how investigations work. We both know how protection works. If they don't know, if they're telling us that they don't know who brought this in, they're lying.
Yeah, great points.
All right.
We'll leave it there. Melanie Burkholder, Jonathan Gilliam.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming on. Great insight.